Chris, I am so excited to talk to you because I'm going to end this with a question for you that I thought of when I first started watching your videos on YouTube. And I've been holding it in since 2014. So
Okay,
I can't wait.
that's a long time. All right.
I had to wait till I could actually talk to you. So I'm like, all right, keep hope alive. All right. So I think I first saw your name in 2014. You were at Capo. That's the meet where I think Zahir Kadaev was there. Sam Bird was there. You guys, and you mentioned in your book, but it wasn't until I read your book, The Eagle and the Dragon, that I realized that you trained at home at one point. That's what got my attention.
A very long time. Yeah.
Because you had a home gym set up in the home that you had with your mom and your stepdad. And then you had your own home gym set up later on. I guess it was you and Rudy Kadlub as well.
And then, he joined in a few years later, and then that ended up transitioning into what is now Kabuki Strength, started in my basement. And then it moved to my garage and then to a commercial facility, and now we service gyms ourselves. So
nice. That's exactly what I want to talk about, because you understand more than a lot of people every facet of the home gym experience. It's amazing to me, but there's still manufacturers who underestimate the home gym audience as far as who supports you, right?
Yep.
Like the reality is that a lot, commercial gyms are not necessarily in the market for specialty powerlifting equipment. Lifetime Fitness is not going to be like, hey, we got to have a transformer bar,
Nope.
But people who are at home who see it, who are passionate about lifting, they're the ones who are going to be like, oh yeah, I need to get that or whatever. So I love that you understand that in a way that some manufacturers that I talk to don't, right? And I'm not going to name names, but I've talked to guys who are like, well, I've never actually worked out at home. I don't know. I've never even owned my own equipment. So I'm like, well, how do you design something for somebody if you never use it yourself? You don't understand what they need.
That is a fundamental issue, I think, throughout the industry for a number of reasons. So because we just see, if you're using equipment, you'll notice like these, God, if it was just this way or just that, and sometimes it's really minor things, but at the end of the day, they add up to being big differences. And it's not just the home gym person; it's the elite athlete.
Oh, yeah.
It's it's on and on because that person doesn't have that experience to draw on.
Right. I mean, so like the idea is, I don't know. Let's say the thing that pops in my head is band pegs, right? If a band peg isn't set up correctly, if you've got training partners or a bunch of other people in the gym, maybe they can help you adjust it on the fly. But if it's just you and and you work out while you're babysitting your kids or whatever, you don't have time to screw with all that stuff. And that's why, like I said, it's awesome when you have a supplier, a manufacturer who understands what you're going through.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of your history. There's a YouTube video of you from, I think, 2009. You were doing bent over rows in what looked like a pair of Carhartt khaki work pants. Was that in your home gym, or was this after you had moved into a public space?
Oh, God, I honestly don't remember, because that was right around the time that the transition happened from closing the home gym, because the home gym ended up growing and growing to the point I had like 20 people, 25 people over every night training in my 2-car garage.
Right.
And my wife at the time was like, this just isn't working anymore. So
yeah.
So that was the impetus to change that. But the funny story, it was probably at home. If I was wearing Carhartt pants or something like that, I had this rule, because when you're at a home gym and you've got, like, let's say when I first started, maybe 1 or 2 other people, and you got a heavy squat session you got to get in, those people have to be there.
Yeah.
Right. So I set a rule that, if you're not here by 5:30, you start with whatever weight is on the bar.
Oh.
And so that was if there's 500 pounds on the bar, you got to walk in and do it. And on occasion, I was a corporate executive at the time. Like, I'd be running in and I'd run late from some meeting or something, and it's 5:30. Well, I don't break the rules. Right. I have to set the example. So next thing you know, I'm under 500 pounds in my dress shoes and my slacks, because I want to get that in right now, because pretty soon it's going to be 550, right? So I don't want to. I don't want to wait till I change. I want to jump in, get that squat in, and now go change. So that was a funny thing that just happened at those times, because I needed to set the example. And if people didn't follow through, I'd end up exiting them from the gym after a while, because it's a commitment to each other when you're living that garage gym life and you're training heavy. Like you've got to be there for each other. So
no, that's actually, I'm laughing because I'm picturing people stretching at like traffic lights. It's like, okay, it's bench day, so they're like this. Okay, I got a little bit of time. Like, I gotta get there. You don't understand, officer. I have a serious need.
If I don't get there, it's gonna be a hurting when I get into that bar.
Hey, follow me and leave the ticket on my windshield. I got you. I'll do it. Yeah. So you just said something about having 20 people there. And you mentioned that in the book, even, you mentioned that you knew when it was time to move out. I guess your wife helped you realize your wife at the time helped you realize it was time to move. But seriously, owning a public or semi-private home gym or a semi-private gym comes with extra headaches, right? Because now you've got additional overhead. You got to pay rent at either mortgage and rent or rent and rent. You got to keep track of members. You got to upgrade your insurance. Even the grade of equipment you use has to change because now more hands are touching it. And then,
I lost so much money those first years after moving to a commercial gym.
Oh yeah,
because it's tough. Like it's not owning a gym is not a money making endeavor. So
no.
Yeah.
So at what point should somebody? Because I can hear the saliva in people. They're like hearing you say 20 members coming all the time to my home gym. So for somebody like that, who's like, yeah, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm outgrowing my garage or I'm outgrowing my basement or whatever. At what point should they start setting aside funds for a commercial space and start the process of scouting locations?
I think that one mistake people think is they want the best, right? And it's like, okay, it's time to get a commercial gym and I want to start, and they're looking and they've got visions, field of dreams, right? Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work that way. Build it and they will come does not work. You need to grow to the size that you are appropriately.
Yeah.
And just, as those changes happen, then grow to the next level. I moved too fast. My first location was 4,000 square feet, and I had all these people that said they were in, and so ran all the numbers, did all this, opened up, and they weren't there.
Of course, yeah.
And so it's like, it was many years to fill that up, and then I moved from a 4,000 to a 9,000 square foot location. Same thing. It was a long time before, getting that. So it's just, you need to grow with it, and I think that's a big mistake that people make. Is
no, go ahead.
Wanting to have that ultimate facility and all the equipment, and no, understand who you're working with right now, what their needs are, what the space requirements are, and maybe what's the next step from there, and start building into that.
Yeah, because there's a couple of things that go with that. And I was actually just I live on an hour from Steve Goggins.
Okay.
Steve.
Yep.
Yeah, and
He's
I
a
was
great guy.
Steve is he's actually my powerlifting coach. So whenever I compete in powerlifting, I said, hey, your weakest member is back, and I'm ready to lift with you. I'm ready to train again. But no, I was talking to him because we're talking about how he decided to move back into his garage. He moved briefly into a commercial space, and he said, he realized after he opened the commercial space that I enjoy coaching athletes more than I like owning a gym.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, there's
so
like a separate dynamic.
There's so many headaches that come with membership. People like the more members, the better. It's more drama, more issues. It's like having more employees to manage, more, you think it's not, but it's like there's so much stuff comes in with that. And a lot of us get into it because we love just training. We love coaching. And I really encourage people to, understand really what their drivers are. And owning a gym is usually it's just some vision that a lot of people just want to have and they glorify, but that's really not the big driver and what the piece that they enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like in those situations, you need to find someone who's almost your opposite. So you're passionate about coaching. You need to find the nerd who's like into the stuff that you don't like, because then they'll be driven to do that. They also won't interfere in your coaching side of things, and it'll kind of be harmonious. So what are some key traits somebody should look for either in themselves or in a business partner if they want to transition from the home gym into a public gym space?
So I think that's gonna vary a bit on where your personality is, what you enjoy, and then counterbalancing that. But exactly to what you speak to, you mentioned, there was Rudy. He was, you read about him in the book. I've got a lot of experience on the financial side of things. I don't enjoy it.
Right.
And Rudy loves doing that. He loves negotiating. He's real estate doing. So he loves the sales side. I'm not a salesperson. So it's made a fantastic relationship over the last decade that we've known each other, because we have a complete, balance, but also trust. And because if you're going to hand something off to somebody or expect them to own that, if you're truly going to own it, that means you're not in there micromanaging it, not having to double check that they've done the work. So you need to have a high level of trust with anybody that you're working with, but really understanding what your weaknesses is, either your own weaknesses or the things that you just don't enjoy. And finding somebody that doesn't go, I'll pick that up if I have to, but it's kind of their nature to fall into those areas.
Were you aware when you got him that you were also picking up not only like the guy who's going to take care of your financial stuff, but he's also a fitness model, and he models Cadillac bars in videos for you. That's the 2-for-1. You scored the jackpot. Let's just use that to segue into products, because you got a lot of products that take an existing concept and it either expands on it or it tweaks it. And I guess that again comes out of the fact that you've had to, in one way or the other, use equipment either at home or in gyms around the world as you're, pursuing your powerlifting career. So like the shoulder rock is an improvement on the mace. The Cadillac bar to me is like a Swiss bar and a cambered bench bar had a baby. Then there's the Duffalo bar and then the trap bar. Like everything is like, okay, I see this and I tweak it. So I know you have a team working for you, but how much of your product development, especially in early years, was you creating something to work around your own injuries, or you just saw something and you've got this engineer's tendency to want to improve things?
Yeah, so it came from a few different things. So one of them is definitely, I've got the engineering background, automotive, aerospace, all that sort of stuff for almost 20 years. And I've been a world-class lifter as well. So, hey, that works really well together. Now combine in, I started developing relationships with the leading researchers or lecturers in regards to human movement principles.
Okay.
And so there's several different schools of thought, but, the world's lead spine biomechanist, the person that brought, we're heavily influenced by a school out of Prague called the Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization. The person that brought that to the U.S., the most renowned physical therapist in the world. These are all like personal friends of mine. They're on our advisory board. You look at our advisory board, we're a smaller company still. There's not a single manufacturer in the world that has that level of people backing it. And I think that kind of naturally fell into my engineering-ish and obviously me wanting to be the best athlete I can be for very selfish reasons, right?
Right.
And so out of that became a philosophy around, or principles around, movement. And so instead of like looking at things going, hey, people make Swiss bars, we can make one too. We do not make things just because they sell. What we look at is, what are the gaps out there? What's missing with how we believe about movement? What are the issues that we're seeing? So like the Cadillac bar, every Swiss bar out there in the world, if you ever use one, they suck. Like I won't even use one. And most good lifters I know all say the exact same thing. The instability in the wrist creates a teeter-totter effect and destabilizes everything downstream and just makes it so the bar wants to crush your face as soon as you take it out of the rack. It wants to come out of your wrist.
Right.
So It's like, oh, well, we'll just apply some simple physics principles and stabilize this. We'll put the load below the handles and make it, again, I use the teeter-totter reference because I call this playground physics. Now we've got a swing. What does a swing do? It always ends up in a stabilized position. The swing, the center of mass is below the rotation. It'll always fall to center. And so that's why it feels so much different and so much better, is we've eliminated that instability in the wrist, which then affects all the other joints in there. And it doesn't want to crush your face. These things don't want to happen. Like the transformer bar, only bar in the world where we can literally manipulate an individual's spinal mechanics and how we place the load about the hip joint, which has huge training effects, huge impacts on biomechanics. And so nobody's thinking down this realm because they're just looking at what else is out there, what's selling, what can we what can we duplicate, where we're looking at it from a movement perspective. So a lot of our stuff is also built around accommodating differences in mobility, limb links, basically to the individuality of the lifter, right? So for the home gym, I don't need 50 different products. Like the shoulder rock, if you were into mace swinging and you went into classical make, you'd need a new mace for every 2 pounds, from basically 6 pounds to 20 pounds.
Right.
That's not reasonable unless you're a mace swinging gym. So it's great for the garage gym, the home gym, but it's also becomes incredibly valuable to the performance athlete, which is why we work with all the top teams in professional sports, 500 plus colleges, because again, these people realize what we're doing. And it's actually the first time that anybody's bringing innovation into barbells and other things in the world that are providing a positive benefit. And getting the joints in the right positions, reducing things that cause a messing with the muscle length tension relationships, providing stability, providing, just it's all built around improving biomechanics and allowing us to individualize for the athlete. And those are powerful things. So I just like people understanding where we come from, because we come from a completely different perspective. We don't come from it from the market perspective. That's where everybody else looks at. They look at the market and then go, what can we sell? We don't care what sells. People come to me with great ideas all the time. Can you make this? I'm like, yeah, we can. We're not going to. But why? It's a great idea. It does. Everybody else is doing it. It doesn't fit our principles. So I just like people to understand that about us. Like, it's what we do comes from our education side of the business, our philosophy and our principles.
So if you're obviously, you do this, but I constantly get ideas from the things I see around me, right? My son and I went to NFL game. We watched the Redskins, the world's greatest team on the football team. We went and watched them play the Atlanta Falcons.
Redskins are a customer too.
Oh, there you go.
They use all our stuff.
Well, hey, you know what? You're my new favorite person. We went and watched them play the Falcons. And on the way there, I saw something that gave me an idea for a video series, right? And so you're constantly getting ideas, but then you have to evaluate it through a filter. Like, is this?
Oh yeah.
Not is this a good idea? There are a lot of good ideas. Is this worth my time, energy, which both represent money, to try to develop? Is there a market for it? And is it worth my own personal time and the time of my team?
Yep.
So what's your thought process as you go through that? It's almost like a OODA loop to try to figure out whether this something is worth producing.
God, I haven't heard the word OODA loop for a few years now. You got a military background or
Marine Corps? Marine Corps.
That's one thing I really like about having a vertically integrated company. We have a gym on site.
Right.
Okay. We've got a manufacturing facility on site. We can prototype, we can test, we can validate. If you walk into our gym, you'll see all sorts of remnants of ideas and things that were, and then, we run it through our leadership team now. So we've got a process where we kind of evaluate that stuff. Look at earlier, it was more off the cuff, but now that we've got, an engineering team, things like that in-house, we can do a little bit of like, hey, this is going to take this much investment in engineering time, R&D, here's the market potential, and have some sort of, justification and actual data behind it, where it was more of a gut feel. There's products that we released and we pulled just because they didn't really move over time. So there's I don't really have.
I don't like bringing up bad memories, but
yeah. Oh, they're not bad memories. So we had one problem I don't like about regular gyms is plates are all sorts of weights. People don't realize that they may be 2 pounds heavy, 3 pounds light. Bands, people love to hook on bands and they go, well, the tension's what this chart says. So we imported some really nice fish scales that go up to 440 pounds, made a kit that replicates the size of bar sleeves and the center of the bar, and captures that you can put inside of a plate to pick up a plate. So you could check every plate weight that you've got. And if you walk around our gym, you'll see all our old cast plates. Every one of them has the actual number written on it. It's going to be 42.
That's something like what Brian Shaw does.
Okay. And then
because I saw him on the Mark Bell show, he said that everywhere he goes, he's so meticulous. He takes this stuff with him so that he can measure what he's lifting because he wants to know what he's lifting.
I wonder if he has one of ours actually, because Brian's been a customer of ours for years. Yeah. And I know he's bought a bunch of our product. I've never actually looked at his order history. He might have one. And then band tension, like a chart doesn't tell you like in this movement at this much stretch. So you could easily go, well, here's the bar size I'm using. It's stretched this amount. So at the top of the lift, I have this. The bottom of the lift, I have this. And so you know what that is. I think it's a really valuable resource. We brought it to market, probably had it out for like a year, just a slow mover, and just wasn't worth the time. So to manage the inventory levels, and because we have to import, a more expensive scale to go with it and things like that, we ended up discontinuing what I think is a good product. So, but volumes just aren't there. But kind of important, I think, if you're lifting weights, you should know what the weights are. Yeah.
Especially if you compete at a high level.
Because, like I love using band tension on my belt squats because otherwise it all loads up just at the bottom of the lift. So I use a huge amount of bands to get it to match my strength curve. So I'm getting development through the whole lift. Right. Well, if I've got 3 or 4 sets of bands on there, how do I know did I make an improvement over the setup from last year versus this year? I don't remember what set of, bands or, I had. So it's a quick, easy, there's 105 pounds worth of band tension. There we go. I know where I'm at.
Stronger. Nice. Yep. Okay. Like I was saying, it's like if you're going to be lifting at a high level, and obviously people have lifted at high levels for years without needing it. That's not the point. And honestly, none of this is the point. Okay. You can get to work without a car, but it's easier with one, right?
Exactly. Doesn't mean it can't be better, right?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Well, I don't need that. I'm like, well, that's true. But so let's go into something that your customers may not think about. Tell me some of the challenges you face as a manufacturer in the U.S. because you are one of few companies that makes your own stuff. So I've written before about the effect of like steel tariffs on American companies versus the Chinese brands, and I'm not going to bring them up because I don't want to get sued, but it rhymes with Iton, and they are, I don't want you to necessarily badmouth them. I'm just saying, talk about some of the challenges that your company faces that other companies may not, that cause their product to be cheaper.
Yeah. I'm going to cover both sides of that actually, because I have a pretty extensive background in manufacturing in a lot of different fields. And that's where my beliefs around American manufacturing really come from, because of seeing the misses and what happens long-term from that. And it's different than what a lot of people expect. So the advantages is we can control quality very well. So we've got full control. We own it, right? And a lot of times when you start sourcing stuff from China, you get your first samples and they look freaking amazing. Oh my God, I can't believe we're going to get this at this cost, right?
Right.
And then you order a boatload of it because you have to order a boatload. So one, you've got to have the financial resources to be able to do that. So as a startup, that becomes a little harder. And then you get the second boatload and you realize quality is not what it is.
Okay.
And you realize you've already paid for the third boatload that's behind that, right? That's on the way.
Oh,
right?
God, yeah.
Okay. And so then there's nothing you can do about that. And now you go back, oh, well, I need to restart manufacturing in the US. Well, you just pulled all your products, so your US vendor that you were buying from has basically gone out of business now. And now there's nobody that even has the tooling. We're talking long term. You're not going to see this in a couple years, right? But now the local market for people that have the investment and tooling to even do this stuff has dried up. So you can't go anywhere. So now you're like, I need to manage quality better. So you start hiring, a purchasing and supplier and quality inspection staff that's highly skilled, that's got to travel to China. Okay. So now you're adding 6-figure labor and massive travel costs.
Oh, yeah.
Right. To have, because you cut out the jobs for the $20 to $30 an hour people that were making the stuff and making a good living. Right. Right. So, so it's just like this circle of issues that go back, and it, like, long term over 10-year period of time doesn't really add that much. You're going to see like big misses that company had, like, I had to take a $200,000 loss on this or whatever, it's like your piece part. But the quality is huge. I mean, look at, I recently, a friend of mine bought a log from that company that you just said. And they'd rolled it in reverse, so their name was actually completely mirrored backwards over the size of the log. At the end of the day, not a big deal, but it's just like, how gaping of an issue is that, right? The challenges are because we source all of our material from the U.S. as well. So we use American-made steel. Lead times, definitely on the stuff that we use can be very, very long. But a lot of times allows us to do specialized things that we wouldn't be able to do elsewhere because of, in the U.S., we have some very specialized manufacturing processes. Sometimes they're higher strength, like our power bar and squat bar are produced in a fashion that no other barbell manufacturer in the world does to have the properties that we do. There's no way in hell I would source that to somebody where we don't have ability to see that until it's shown up at our doorstep 6 months later.
So let me just go back to something you just said when you're talking about the name being reversed. Okay. You mentioned my military background. I don't have X-ray vision. So I can't look at a piece of steel that shows up in the mail and say, okay, this has got a hairline crack, and so I don't need to use it. What I have to go on is the attention to detail that a company pays to the things I can see. And that is how I evaluate from the first day I was ever put in charge of anything, starting at Paris Island. That's what they taught us. It said, you look at what you can see, and that's how you evaluate what you can't see. Okay. If that shows up at my house, I don't want it because I don't know what else you screwed up. You know what I mean?
Walk by a new housing complex that's being built and look at all the windows, and the houses that have like the stickers for the company's name, like all cattywampus all over inside their own windows versus the ones that are just perfectly aligned, dead center. That means they've trained those people to be, very disciplined about every aspect of their product, including down to placing the sticker that is going to just get ripped off as soon as they're done installing it and cleaning up the house, right? But it's a representation of like,
it's how we do business.
How things are done within that company, right? Just get it done. Just slap that on there.
Yeah. I mean, so my first job out of college was working at a gym where we had people, it was an awesome microcosm of America because we had people who were executives coming to work out in their lunch hour. And because it was run by the city of Chattanooga, you also had people who couldn't afford to work out anywhere else. They may be coming out of prison. And so they got 50 cents because that's what it cost, 50 cents a day. And so they would come in. And so you had former prison inmates working out alongside the, a top executive down at, Crystal Company or something like that. And it was great, but so everybody had like different experiences with how you should treat equipment. And I still remember this guy dropping a dumbbell one time too many. It was one of those Hex dumbbells. Yep. And I didn't know it was made in China until it broke.
Yeah,
he dropped it. It broke.
I've seen them. I've got some of those in my own gym,
Yeah. And then, yes, when you find out that it's actually not welded, it's like they take the handle and just kind of welded, but they just kind of weld the ends on, as opposed to, I think, I'm not sure about this company, but there are other companies who do it the right way, and they drill down, put the handle inside the dumbbell, then weld that shut. So it's one solid piece of steel. Yep. And I keep saying to people, if you have a home gym,
and you can't tell like that center handle, what's the alloy of that material, so that when you drop it, it's just going to end up folding over versus being able to withstand those loads. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I tell people, okay, you're training at home. Don't look at just the cost. Look at the environment, right? Who's going to be at home with you when you work out? Is it going to be your 3-year-old toddler? Is you babysitting your toddler? That's usually me. It's me babysitting my toddler, right? If I get hurt, is my 4-year-old going to call 911? Or is she going to have to sit there and watch daddy suffer, crying, not knowing what's going on, while I just wait for somebody to come back home, right? Yep. And that's why equipment quality matters to me. And I'm like, it's cheaper than a hospital bill.
Yep. So I just want to play off of that. This is just a complete plug. I'll tell you that right up front.
No, that's fine.
But it articulates some of these points. So we do have a couple products that are not biomechanics related, and that is our squat bar and our power bar. Right. But why did I do that? It's just for what you talked about. So we can literally cut any other bar in the world in half with our bar. That's the longevity. So the knurling will not change. And it'll start eating your J cups away and all that sort of stuff because it's essentially tool steel. But there's a reason for that. And that is your connection. And if you have a gap in your ability to engage properly with that, you're going to have a neurological reduction in force output. So this is like trying to sprint on ice. You can't like go full force. You can't put your body senses the slippage and will downregulate to prevent the potential for an injury, right?
It's like your Golgi tendon organ.
Yep. So the value of this though is, so a regular barbell where your hands go under regular use, somewhere between 2 to 4 years, that knurling is going to be worn down to the fact that is going to happen to some level. Okay.
Right.
Particularly of deadlifting or things where you're grabbing the bar, slipping on your back during squatting, same thing. You're not going to be able to put your full power into it. So it's like, why do we want to do this? Well, I'm like, if somebody's making the investment, and I was thinking specifically about the home gym owner, like these people are buying the bar for themselves and they're investing in strength. And I want this to last them their lifetime. And potentially their kids' lifetime. So you could literally buy that bar. So people complain about the price on that bar because it's a little expensive. There's more expensive bars on the market, and we can cut those in half, by the way. But it costs twice the amount of a standard power bar that you would go buy from another one of these manufacturers. But it's going to last you like generations, not a couple years. It's
like those old York
bars. I'm like, arguably, ours is the cheapest bar in the market.
Yeah.
Because that quality is going to save you from replacing it. So anyway, that's just kind of the thought process, and it ties in with what you're saying here.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because, I did not make up this phrase, but it was buy nice, don't buy twice. And like, hey, like how long, I guess, so my kids have, we've got 5 kids. And 3 of them are out of the house already, but they all started out working out with me when they were toddlers. So, in fact, I've got a picture somewhere I pull out to embarrass my son, who's a sergeant in the Marines now. I pull it out whenever I feel like it. It's him doing some dumbbell curls with a pacifier in his mouth. But so I was just like, these are the people that are going to get my whatever equipment I have at the time when I pass away, this is going to get it. And they'll probably pass it on to their kids. So how much do I love my grandkids? That's what I think about when I'm buying equipment. And I mean, maybe I read too much into it, but that's just how I am. And I'm like, I want to have a generational effect on my family's health. And part of that is making sure my grandkid doesn't get crushed because, what was that thing that happened to Joe Sullivan? He was squatting and the bar bent around him.
Just bent around over his back.
Yeah. I'm like, so picture that happening to your grandson and you're dead.
Luckily,
so, whatever.
Luckily, he was able to recover just barely because he's incredibly freaking strong monster.
Yeah.
That he was able to muscle that thing over. But that formed over his back, and there's like no way to get it back into the rack.
So you mentioned the people who train at your gym get to play with the toys before Gen Pop does, right? Yep. So how many months of testing, just roughly, go into testing a product before the rest of us even hear about it?
God, it depends. So it could be as little as 2 to 3 months. It could be years in some cases. So my general rule of thumb is if it's something completely new, I personally want to use it for about 6 months. And if I'm not using it after 6 months, it means that it was it was something that just caught my fancy, the idea.
Okay.
It really isn't adding any long-term value.
Okay.
And I think that's something I wish more people would use before they publish things like on social media and wherever, like, oh my God, try this. You've got to have your blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It's revolutionary.
And it's like, yeah, you've been doing that for 2 days. Check back a little while before you try to sell all your friends on doing the same thing again. So, and I think I like to do the same process, So yeah, I call it the 6 month rule. I've got an article on it. So.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit because I mentioned The Eagle and the Dragon, your autobiography, when we started. And again, I really, really enjoyed that. That's for anybody who's paying attention to this interview. I really enjoyed that book. How's the book doing?
Book's doing incredibly well. So it's a bestseller in 5 different categories on Amazon. We just released the audiobook version. And I read that myself because it's a very personal piece. Yeah. And it's what I love is just more than anything is not the amount of how much it's moving, but the responses that I'm getting, because the book was written in a very specific manner. It's an autobiography, but it's not. I mean, you've read it and you know what I'm talking about. But it's actually more meant for you. So I have nobody's life is, better or worse. We all have different challenges and things, but I had a really big scope over the course of my life that has allowed me to generate a lot of these philosophies and thoughts about mindset and approach to life. And so to give you the 90-second dissertation for your lifters, I grew up homeless, and we're talking like homeless living in the woods, foraging for food, killing animals, and watching your family and friends die around you. Dealing with murderers, a serial killer, human trafficking, like some fucked up shit. We'll just put it plainly. I ended up putting myself through college, getting my engineering degrees, my MBA, while taking custody of my 3 younger siblings to get them out of that environment and getting them on to have helping them find the path so that they could create that themselves, not really giving that to them. And then went on to become really successful in my career, developed to the executive level where I was basically coming in. They'd hire me to come in and turn around a division of a company or a whole company itself, prep it for sale, grow something from a regional presence to a national or international at that level. And then, I was a lifter, set some Guinness World Records, some all-time world records in powerlifting, and feats of strength and stuff that have been unduplicated. And I do those as fundraisers for charity now. But the goal of the book is those stories are used to just articulate how far you can move the needle if you've got the right mindset. And so the goal of the book, there's a lot of messages in it, but is to have people explore deeper what their values are and really understand their values so that they can align and create goals that will achieve that, and then help them through both motivation and through, practical tools, how to live a life that will realize those values and goals. And that's where I'm at now with having created Kabuki Strength, because my passion is to help people live better through strength, to have strength be an additive tool to make your life better. And so we make the tools, the coaching, the education, all this stuff to happen. And the book is my passion project to attack the other side, because Kabuki Strength is just the physical side, around the mental, emotional, or maybe even spiritual aspects of having adversity and challenges be nothing more than a positive thing to help you grow and be a better, stronger version of yourself. And the reviews and responses have been, it's having that effect. It's getting people's wheels turning, driving change in people's lives. And that's what I'm so happy about.
Oh, I mean, so, okay, you really described the book very well, but like, to put things in perspective for people, you had a part of the book where you talked about how you were a toddler, I believe, and you already knew how to safely stop a rattlesnake from attacking you. Because
that's the environment. At the time,
because that's what they couldn't watch you.
Yeah, we were living, in the mountains. We had no
Yeah.
transportation. Lived next to a little stream. There's a bunch of rattlesnake dens around. So, we camped as a living. That's what we did. So in this instance, because the amount of rattlesnakes, we lashed, beams into the trees, and we had tree forts that we would sleep in. And I was 6 years old and had to be taught how to be able to catch a rattlesnake by hand and handle it. And I'm sitting there at 6 years old, staring into down the face of a rattlesnake in my hand as it's wrapping around my wrist and my arm. Life and death right there. And some unique experiences, that's for sure.
And then you're like, so I'm reading the book, and then you say that you didn't realize how different your childhood was until you had kids. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe that's not normal. Okay. But
it's crazy now. I've got three children, and 10, 7, and 1.5. And looking at them now and, reflecting, it's been like, so there wasn't that much emotion with all the struggles growing up. I just did. And I worked through, and it really wasn't until like I got in my mid 30s and started, looking at my kids and then reflecting on my experiences growing up. And all of a sudden I'd just be like super like this stuff started hitting me like it had never done before in my life. When I look at my children and I imagine them being in the position that I was, and I'm like, holy fuck, that's just I don't ever want to have them go there, but I still want to have them learn the value that no matter the obstacle, no matter what happens to them, they can form the world around them to be what they want, and empower them to do that. And that's what I'm trying to do with my work today. That's my biggest priority when we talk about values, is to be able to leave them with the belief and knowledge that they can do that themselves because they saw their dad do it. And, I set the example with saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Hey, I'm going to be a best-selling author. Boom. I sat down and spent a year and I did it. And here I am. I'm going to start a company based on my values and philosophies.
Yeah.
Here it is, and just being able to create the world as you want to.
Whenever you have a parent who casts a large shadow, it can either inspire you or it can, I don't want to say demoralize, but it can kind of discourage you, because you're like, well, how do I match up to that? So, for example, my father helped set up the TV station in the TV network in Israel just after the 6-Day War. So he's got photos of himself with the prime minister at the time, with Moshe Dayan, with all these different people. And I'm just like, okay, how do I follow that act up, right? And it inspired me, because he always encouraged me to be my own version of who I am. He's like, don't be me. Don't be a clone of me, a copy of me. Don't even be my shadow. You take the family name forward how you want to do it, right? How do you do that with your own kids? I know they're very young, but how do you start building that in them?
You know, I was actually going to speak to that. One of the biggest frustrations I have, like when people see my kids, is they go, "Oh my God, little power lifter coming up," and I'm like, I don't want them to be me. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like that. Yes, I want them to be physically active, like you know, expressing yourself and becoming a strong body, strong mind. Like, yeah, that needs to happen. I don't care if you run marathons or do gymnastics. My daughter's loving gymnastics right now.
Nice.
But like, I feel I've done something wrong if like I've influenced them to follow or try to chase the path that I have.
Right.
And so when I talk about the strength it's not that doing big things in the world that I referenced. It was the power to influence and create the world that they want. And that's what I'm trying to get them to, because it's the same exact thing. It doesn't have to be, as long as it's what they want. And I don't want them to be a victim of circumstances, environment, just like falling into life. I found a job. I just did, that's not what I want for them. But it doesn't mean being a public figure or setting records or anything like that at all.
Right.
Your own version.
The other side of it, the flip side of it is, I think one reason, this goes back to what we're talking about with manufacturing. I think one reason why we tend to have issues with some quality is because manufacturing is no longer something that's
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
I'm a troublemaker.
Oh my God. Okay. I won't even let you finish your question. I'm going to go on some rants. So
it's not passed from father to son. Like, this is our family pride or thing. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not even, it's influenced for people to be away from it. So in our schooling system, it starts very young that if you've got any level of intelligence, you don't want to go into trades. You need to go this direction. Oh, our counselors, both high school and college, direct everybody towards going, you need to get this, go this path and not this path. I've had so many like 6-figure people working for me that have nothing but a high school degree or no high school degree at all. And it's just, there's something of value to like doing something and creating something. Okay. And walking home every day knowing you've accomplished something.
Right.
And it takes, to do trade work, takes a high level of intelligence to be good. It's also one of your fastest paths to becoming a business owner if you want to go that direction. Become an electrician, become a plumber. Then you end up hiring your own crew and starting your own company and being like, I am so like to have math skills, to be a machinist and be able to critical think. These are not, people think they're button pushing jobs and they're the most menial things. There's a high level of thought that goes into this stuff and being able to problem solve and interact with people. And so this is all coming from somebody with multiple degrees, by the way, here, super overeducated. But I think our educational system's broken. And I think the way we direct people is broken. Like, you've failed if you're doing one of these jobs. I don't think so. I think these are some of the most rewarding jobs out there, and they pay really well.
Oh yeah.
They joke about who makes more, the lawyer in the fancy house or the plumber that has to go fix his toilet. It's usually the plumber that has to go fix his toilet.
And the plumber doesn't have student loans.
Exactly.
Pay off because he was in school instead of making money. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm really, I find it very frustrating in the world because there's something about doing work with your hands and creating change and knowing that versus heck, what's the other option? Go get a liberal arts degree in something that has no validity in the world, and now you're making $20,000 a year working Starbucks.
Exactly.
And now you're just on the path. Now, okay, now what do I do? Because that didn't do anything for me. And so anyway, it's something I believe strongly in. So that's another reason that I'm big on manufacturing, is like we're creating great jobs for people that can sustain their lives, and they're really rewarding. They're challenging. And so anyway, sorry for the rant, but like,
that's what I try to do. No, that's good. Because
this is something I genuinely care a lot about. And I think that there's major issues with it. And again, coming from somebody that's one of those overeducated people, I don't think that that's the direction everybody should be pushed.
Okay, so let me make it worse, because there's a couple of things that inform my thought process, right? Number one,
Anybody who follows my stuff sees I do a lot of stuff. I'll do prototyping. I'll work in the shop.
Yeah.
I create vehicles from scratch. I do.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's some point in your life, and it doesn't have to be that. It could be playing guitar or, whatever it is. I think we all need to have that form of creation, in our life. Yeah.
I think you can point and say, I made that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so like my youngest son right now is he's in school virtually. And so one of the things I noticed when he moved from just going to school to what he does now is he didn't have study skills, because like we were just talking about it, and I realized he didn't have study skills. He didn't know how to study, and he didn't know how to be proactive about education, because he was used to them just kind of just funneling him along, like, okay, just go here.
Yeah.
And he's a likable kid, respectful and all that. So the teachers wanted, so, we'll just give you extra credit at the end of the year if you're not doing well in the class. I'm like, well, hold on. That's what you do for athletes so that they continue to pass. But at the end of the year, they still don't know what they were supposed to learn, right? So now you've got somebody with a degree who actually doesn't know, anything. And you're like, well, how do you function in the world? And so at the same time, see how I'm going to segue this back. You had an unorthodox approach to school. You bought books from the library. You read everything in 2 weeks, learn what you could from it, and then you return it to get your money back. And that made your classmates think that you were a slacker. But in reality, you had like one of the top grades in the class.
Yeah, so, I graduated with the highest engineering degree. But I knew my skills. I knew I was good at taking tests. I knew and it wasn't that I was slacking. I was doing other things because I lived a life of uncertainty. So guess what I did when I got to college? I went and got a job and started working full time.
Yeah.
I had my sisters that I ended up taking custody of. I was down this whole other path. And so I wasn't just solely, hey, I'm going to school like everybody else. So on the outside, I looked like a slacker because I barely ever showed up for class. I didn't have books. Didn't do any of the recommended homework. But in my prioritization, I knew that I didn't need to do those things to accomplish what I needed to do and where I was going. And it's not what I recommended. I used to not tell people about that because I was kind of embarrassed.
Yeah.
But that's just, I know how my mind works, and I know what I can, how I can use that effectively for me.
Well, what I mean by that is I actually like that because you did some self-analysis, and that's one of the things, that sort of self-examination is one of the facets of your book, where you ask people to ask questions of themselves. Like, you need to determine how you learn, how you react to the world, and how you perform best. And that affects you, whether it actually even affects you as a lifter. It's like, well, you have to figure out how you get stronger. How do I personally get stronger? Not somebody who I idolize or admire. Their path may not be my path.
That happens a lot. People this is my favorite lifter. I'm going to follow exactly what they do.
That's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea because you're also not following the 10 years of stuff that they did
exactly
to get to where they're at now. And you're not that person.
But knowing your experience in college specifically, how does that experience inform how you manage people today? So you show up at how do you show up at somebody's desk and they look like they're not doing anything? How does that, but then you think back to how you were in college, so how does that inform how you manage people?
It definitely affects it. So, and this is an area kind of so I mentioned Rudy, my business partner. He's 70 years old, very much a more classical approach. We've got a game room studio here at Kabuki, where the guys all have, Super Mario Brothers, Smash Bros, and all that stuff set up. Okay. I think they got a keg up there too. Whatever. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care.
Right.
And Rudy, don't they know how busy? Why are they up there? And I'm like, dude, they were here till 8:00 last night. She's like, where's everybody at today? I'm like, it's hot out and they're at the river rafting.
Yeah.
He's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, they worked Saturday and Sunday last weekend. I'm like, I don't track this stuff, but I just manage people by, what my expectations are of what they get done. I'm not, I don't like, so here's one of the things I think that where people take the fun out of work is by micromanaging, because now you're taking away the creative part of figuring out how do I actually get the results and get this job done.
Right.
If I go in and tell them, this is exactly how you got to do it. This is what I need you to do Monday, Tuesday to get it done. Like you're just a button pusher, like in essence, right? You're just sitting there doing the work of what I want done versus me saying, hey, I want you to own this piece of the business and I want you to take it here. And here's like, hey, do you want to have some back and forth on how we get there? So I view myself more as a coach, a mentor, a consultant, than a manager.
Right.
Okay. And this is how you actually drive like significant change in people's life too, is because, give somebody a challenge that scares them. Don't tell them how to do it. Be there and available to help them get there whenever they need it. But when they get that done, the sense of gratification and accomplishment is going to spur them onward. And anyway, that's just my style. I've had so many people like follow me through the years. I've had people over the course of 3 different jobs. I've fired people on multiple occasions and had them come back and find me and request to work for me again to show that they've changed, to prove it to me that they've done that. I have so many people like in the manufacturing, because I work in the manufacturing sector, that are ex-employees that are plant managers or general managers of large facilities all around our metro area, because they've grown on to that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. There's that guy was a forklift driver and assembler for me, 15, 20 years ago. He's the general manager of an aerospace manufacturing facility now, right? Nice. There's, like stories like that. And that's how I lead. And it's got a different set of results and kind of scares some people, and people can take advantage of it as well. And but that's you got to take the pluses and minuses, I guess.
That what you just described reminds me of a story that I heard when I was in the Marine. It was in a leadership class. So the gunny says, "How does a good first sergeant get a pole put up in the middle of a concrete parking lot?" So we're like, I don't know. And he said, he goes out there and says, "Hey, I need a pole put up in that parking lot," and leaves. And just leaves. Instead of staying there and telling you how to do it, because that's how he identifies who's going to take initiative.
Yep.
And the way you put the pole up might be better than the way he would have told you to do it.
Well, that's because sometimes I know exactly the most efficient way to get something done. Yeah. And when I was younger in my career, I'd get frustrated. I'm like, no, this is the way you guys need to do it, or girls, whatever. Right. Yeah. And then I realized, like, if the team really believes this other way and they're not bought into yours, they're going to be, even if it's less efficient, it's going to be more efficient.
Right.
Because they're going to show
they won't
you.
Rebel.
They're going to prove it. They're bought in. They want to see this happen versus like following your plan. It's just, and you just go, okay, good. Make it happen, guys. Yeah, make it happen. Do it.
This is what I want, and walk away.
Yep.
So I've been here raving about this book. So where can people buy The Eagle and the Dragon?
Amazon is probably the best place. You can find it at Barnes & Noble. The audiobook you can get on Amazon, or you can go straight to Audible. On my if you go to my Instagram or just christopherduffin.com, there should be a link, because Audible is running a huge discount right now, or an opportunity. So if you don't have an account, you can get my audiobook for free plus another one. And there's a link for that on my, just by signing up for an account. You can cancel it any time. It is a benefit to me if you use that link. I'm not going to lie. I'm not. So any of those works for me. If you want a signed copy, we've got signed paperbacks and hardcovers at the Kabuki Strength store as well. You can get the ebook, the paperback, the hardcover, and the audio version all online.
So here's the question: since 2014, maybe 2015, what happened to that hydraulic bench press I saw in one of your videos? And when's that going to be available to the public?
So it's still here, and it is still in the design concept. So actually, what I would like, God, I can't. I don't think I'm going to go too far into it. We're going to be making it into a combination type product that rapidly adjusts to the individuality of the lifter in a small space. So basically a racking solution that somebody could, let's say, start up their own business training 12 to 15 people at a time by rapidly adjusting for squatting, benching, incline pressing, whatever, in a small space, let's say 600 square foot, which is a double car garage. You could use this one in a smaller space than that. But basically taking Kabuki concepts to a racking, into the racking. That's a big project. There's a lot of engineering that's got to go into it. So it's just, it's not in the active queue, but our engineering team is occasionally working on it. But I'd like to see that later next year.
Okay. Because I mean, I still
much more than what you've seen. It's still around and functional. It's been running for like 10 years. And it's fucking.
Man, I saw that thing.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, this dude's like, okay, so he said, hold on, I have to adjust the rack here and for his bench, for your bench, and you like grab this thing and you press the button, and I see the uprights start going up. I said, so what in the world is that?
Well, that's great. So if you got a bunch of different lifters moving, on a squat or on a bench or whatever, you got 500 pounds on there. You can't just lift it up and change the hook locations. On the bench press, you can lift up one side and move the pen. Yeah. It's a lot of work. And people, like, I've had one of my person I work with tear his bicep off doing that. Like, so anyway, it's built around those concepts.
Yeah.
So.
You guys keep on watching for that. Okay. All right. So people probably know already, but let's make sure. How can people follow you and your company? Give me all the information. Okay.
So for me, honestly, probably the easiest way is just type in my name, Chris Duffin. But my handle is mad_scientist_Duffin.
Okay.
So mad scientist Duffin, underscores between the words. Kabuki Strength is the company name. We have a company Instagram. It's really great. There's a lot of content that's not on my page. Mine's more just like personal stuff and lifting.
Yeah.
We have one for our coaching, which is where all our educational materials go. So Kabuki virtual coaching, or you can just type in hashtag Kabuki EDU, and all of our educational posts will show up. And let me tell you, it's a trove of free information. I've got an entire staff of people dedicated to producing content and coaching people. And so they put out content almost daily. You can find us on YouTube for some of the longer videos. Obviously, they're on IGTV as well. Kabuki Strength is our main website. I also am co-owner of Barefoot Athletics. We're getting started with a company that makes minimalist. It's starting with a sock, while the deadlift slipper next, or slipper, and then getting into minimalist footwear in future years, and then Build Fast formula for amazing evidence-based supplementation, all clinical dosage, sport safe. Producing sport safe facilities, full disclosure labels, all that sort of stuff. Again, you can find kind of links to all this stuff on my main website, christopherduffin.com. Just so much education on our main website. You could also just go kabuki.education. So you'll see our coaching services, links to our movement portal. So we've got an indexed video library that's like $10 a month with just massive amount of even more in-depth than what we produce free. So it's just an incredible resource for the price. Hundreds upon hundreds of videos in there. So yeah, we got lots of stuff out there for you to explore. You could spend months like diving through all this stuff. So yeah.
Nice. Well, Chris, I really do appreciate it. This is the moral of the story, kids, is check your DMs, because I got a DM from you. I think I had posted something showing like I had the video. No, it was the book. Yeah, I had posted a picture of the book or something like that. And because I started reading, I said, oh, this is a great resource. Because what we want to do is let people know about what's out there, because I've been training at home since like 2001. So I get how it is. You're trying to find out information, right? And I saw it, and you reached out to me, so we've had some back and forth. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It was an honor to talk to you.
It's been a fun conversation.
Nice, man. Thank you.
All right.